Hi, everybody. This is your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer for Sports Illustrated, Hondo Carpenter, and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast. Welcome back to Costa Mesa. Soon as I'm done taping this, headed to grab a bird to head to Minnesota for the big game tomorrow. A lot of good stuff. Got a bunch of emails from you, the listeners, I want to address. So let's get right at it. Now, usually I'm at my office and I have a printer where I can print emails and then I read them. But in this case, because I'm not at my printer, um, I took notes on each one that my staff sent me to read. So please forgive me if I don't read the entirety of your email. I never do usually the entirety, but if I don't read more, but I will give the name of the person who wrote it and the gist of the email. The first one comes in from Kyle. Kyle says, Hondo, I was at training camp practice and was a person was at training camp practice and wanted to know uh, about me moving so much all over the field, watching so much of it. That comes to us from Tanisha Wade. Tanisha Wade. So, Tanisha, thank you for coming to practice. If I had a chance to meet, it was great to meet you. Um, I'm moving around all the time, up and down and all around, because I'm trying to watch as much as I can. Um, I'm not there to visit. I'm not there to, say hi to, talk to the rest of the media, although they're good guys and gals. I don't mind talking to them. I'm trying to do my job. I'm trying to watch as much as I can to evaluate as many players as I can. So I appreciate that. I'm glad you noticed. The next one comes from Dan Rowe. He says, "Are Gardner Minshew and uh, Aiden O'Connell are their interceptions different?" That's a great question. So what he was trying to get at the crux is one of them because of bad throws, the other because of bad luck or bad reads? No. 99% of interceptions are human error. Either a Sometimes it's a timing route where a quarterback has to throw to a spot and the wide receiver doesn't get there. But if the wide receiver was jacked up by a defender, it's really nobody's fault. So the quarterback did his job, the wide receiver tried. That's the danger of timing runs. It's why I hate them. I hate them. I don't Obviously you lead a guy when he's running a route, but I hate the timing spot offense. I hate it. Too many interceptions happen when nobody in the offense did anything wrong. I would not classify their interceptions as different. I really wouldn't. A couple of them had interceptions where the defense made great plays. They both had plays where they just made bad reads. That was the majority. And then there were a couple that I don't think were on them, both. So no, I don't. I really don't think, Mike, that they're. Excuse me, Dan, that they were that different. But that's a really good question. I appreciate it. The next one says, Hondo, how do you think the offense is looking in the red zone? That comes from Natalie E in Wales, in the UK. Great question, Natalie. I talked about this on Wednesday's podcast because they spent a lot of time in the red zone where Aiden led. He led a long drive that obviously got into the red zone and scored a touchdown. And then in just red zone practice, he had another touchdown. So did Gardner. I thought the offense had a high note on Wednesday, and I think the offensive practice in the red zone on Wednesday looked much better than it's looked all um, camp. So that's a great question from you, Natalie. The next one comes to us from uh, Neil W. Says, Hondo, the chemistry with Aiden um, and his teammates, because he's been here longer, does that give him a benefit? Well, I would really encourage you to go back. I have the video up of him and Gardner Minshew's press conference. I think it was Tuesday. Um, and I'd encourage you to go back and watch that. I don't know that it gives him an advantage for the job to win it, because he's going to win it on the field. But yes, I do think there is an element of chemistry that's vital.
And do I think that helps him more than Gardner not having it? I do, but I don't think it's big enough to say it's going to be a deciding factor in the race. Next one comes to us from Mark M. Mark wants to know about Devontae being gone so much for his child being born. Do I think it hurts the team? Couple of things. Do I think it hurts the team? First, the most important thing is to be there for the birth of your child. So, um, this is not a criticism of him going. If my wife were having a baby, I'd be there too. Um, I That is such a good question. Do I think it hurts? It certainly doesn't help, but I'm not as sure that it really hurts them. You're getting a lot of receivers, a lot more reps. But quite frankly, I think it would help Devontae. I think it would help Devontae. He had some drops last year, and he had some drops while he was here. Not a ton. So, yeah, I think when you're having a little bit of some drops, getting those reps in, but I don't fault them. I would be with my wife too, and that's nothing personal. The next one wants to know, this is from Michael B. Hondo, are the Raiders taking notes? What's going on with the Chiefs? Okay. Well, let me just say this to you. The Chiefs are the world champions, the best quarterback in the NFL, the best head coach in the NFL. I give them all of that. But they're the last team that beat the Chiefs, and they beat the snot out of them on Christmas Day in front of the worldwide audience, nearly 50 million people watching on television, and they just didn't beat them. They beat the crap out of them. And with Taylor Swift sitting up in her booth, they watched the Raiders pound her boyfriend, beat up her buddy's husband, and before you diminish it, I mean, they called it a butt whipping. The Chiefs did, and said it's what motivated them to go on and win a Super Bowl. So my question is, are the Chiefs paying attention to what's happening with the Raiders? There's a lot of Raider fans that seem to be so focused on the Chiefs. Your focus needs to be right here because the Raiders went out and proved you want to beat the Chiefs, have an elite defense. That's how you beat them. You have an elite defense, and the Raiders got one, and it's better than last year. So that's how I would answer that question, Michael. Next one. Not a slam on you. That's just how I would answer it. Comes from Joey V in Salt Lake City. Gardner, body language versus AOC on Tuesday. Do you think the coach told them after practice who the starter was? Because Joey believed that Gardner looked a little tense. I would agree with that. I thought that at the time. He wasn't his usual smiling, joking. Aiden seemed to be a little more relaxed, not a lot, but a little bit more. No, they had not told them. So no. Um, Next, how do I approach people in public? Bobby M wants to know. Not sure why that's important, but I don't know how that made it on the list, but I'll answer it. I just try to treat people the way I want to be treated. And I'm going to tell you, we live in a synthetic world, and I try to be authentic. I'm who I am. I'm not going to try to be cool. I'm not cool. It's not who I am. I am a dad, a husband. I love the Lord. I certainly thoroughly enjoy my job and thoroughly love and admire football. I'm blessed to work for the company I work for, but I there are so many people trying to be uh, I just want to be me. So you know what? I had a. I'll just read the next email. Comes to us from Carice, Carissa, Carissa D. Carissa said, I was at training camp and I was very impressed. Every woman who introduced herself to you, you took your hat off. What's that about? And so going back and answering your question, Bobby M, and Carissa's. I was raised by a dad. When you meet a lady, you take your hat off. It's just a sign of respect. Yes, ma'am. I just try to be me. And you know what? I know those are old fashioned values. When I see somebody greet a lady, take off their hat, that's their decision. I don't think I'm better than them. But Bobby, I just try to be me. I'm a hunter, I'm an outdoorsman, and I'm not trying to be cool. I don't, I just, I have deep and profound respect. I was raised by a man that was very successful in his life, who taught his sons the importance of being appreciative and being genuine. And I think that's how I approach it. I think there are some people that try to approach the players and be cool. I just try to approach them and be me. And you know what? I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Just that's why I don't read the comments anymore. But at the end of the day, I think people, they may not like you, but I think people will respect people who are authentic. Again, we live in a synthetic world, and I think the world's looking for more people to be authentic. And Carissa, yes, I did take my hat off, and it was just a sign of respect as a lady. Just like there are some things I would talk about in front of men, I would never talk about in front of women. Not because I think they're dumb or stupid or can't. No, it's because I respect them. I respect them. There are things I'll talk about with my friends I would never. When my wife says something to me, I always say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. When my mother-in-law or my daughters or a lady says something, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, just being respectful. Again, I understand I'm 53 years old, and that's not the way everybody lives their life. I'm not better than them. I just be me. And I don't know why that was important, but Carissa, thank you. It was nice to meet you. And Bob, thank you, Bobby. Um, this question from Guy P is one I'm stunned. It's the first time somebody's asked me. So, Guy, salute, sir. Great question. With the new kickoff rules, is it going to impact onside kicks in a massive way? There are several changes that I don't fully understand. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend and fake my way through it with you, Guy. I know they now have to declare to the other team and they have to declare to the referees, and there's some formation changes. If you ask me about it in a couple of weeks, I'll make sure I have all the information for you. Or let's just do this. The next time Tom McMahon's available, I'll ask Tom McMahon. This is from Jason B. The quarterback competition. Do you think it's about floor and ceilings with an edge to Aiden because they know Gardner's floor and his ceiling, but they only know Aiden's floor? That is a really good observation. And I want to go back to what I've been telling you all off season. When they signed Gardner, I was told it's Aiden's job to lose. It's his job. And if Gardner is going to take the job, he has to win it. Can't tie him because Gardner is being paid tens of millions of dollars. He's coming off a Pro Bowl as an alternate, and he has vastly more experience. Aiden only has a half a year. Aiden's still got another year and a half of real development before I think you can make a legitimate judge on him. I'm hearing some people, even in the media, privately, because I don't pay attention to what they write. I'm just too busy doing what I do. But I who say, well, he's a backup. Well, I'm not sure about that. I'm not, and I know that they are. That's a really good question. I don't know that I would have framed it that way, but I can tell you, I think that's good, and I think they know what they have in Gardner, and Aiden is under a long-term deal. It's significantly cheaper, and they only have a half a year. I think they really want to see what more does Aiden have in the tank. But that's a great, great question. The next one comes to us from Chris W. Chris said that he was at camp and he said it looked like Mark Davis called me over to him and him and I had a lengthy private conversation. He would like to know what was said. Yes, Mark did call me over and we did have a lengthy conversation, but it was off the record. So there's nothing that he and I talked about that I'll discuss publicly. Um, the next one, this is from Ben L in Syracuse, New York. Hondo, do you think the failure to have joint practices is going to negatively impact the team? Love this question. Great question, Ben. A couple of things. I am a massive proponent, always have been, of joint practices. I love them. I don't like them. I love them. When AP decided not to do it, you may remember I was the first media member to tell you there are no joint practices scheduled. And although maybe one could be, I wasn't expecting it. I was the first one to break that. Their reasoning was the defense was so good and they knew they needed to build camaraderie as a team, number one. And they wanted that offense to really have to go against the best to really test it. With number two, I still would have preferred joint practices. But when I understood why number one, new year, new regime, a bunch of new players, they just felt like they needed to get alone and go somewhere else and build camaraderie. That made sense to me. So if it was just reason two, I would have told you, yeah, I think it would hurt them. But it wasn't just reason two. So for me, it made sense when you put number one with it. I hope that clarifies and makes sense. The next one comes from Marcus T. Marcus T says, Hondo, at joint practices, it was great to meet you. I mentioned to a couple of players what I'd heard about camp, and two of them said, you've been listening to Hondo. I said, yes. And they said, good choice. I'm curious about your relationship with the players and how you build it. I just think it's your fair to players. You don't make it personal. I listen to some media criticize people and I'm like, and you wonder why they can't stand you. You can be critical of a player's play and they have no problem with that. But you don't have to make it personal. I'll give you an example, okay? When Derek Carr was the quarterback of the Raiders, and obviously the Raiders believed in him because they paid him tens of millions of dollars. And I would see people, Derek Carr's a bum. Okay. Well, first of all, he's not a bum. He's not homeless. He's not jobless. And he's made tens of millions of dollars at his job. Have you done that? At the same time, Derek and I are friends. I was able to be critical of Derek, but it wasn't personal. Okay. I have a very good relationship with a very good relationship. I had a very good relationship with Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler. Okay. I was very critical, but the entire time I kept it fair, I kept it honest. And so those are the ways that you do that. Everybody, I told you about, everybody makes a mistake. I don't know. I don't know of one professional athlete who uh, has a problem with the reporter just being honest. But I know a lot of them that have issues with them, and I've had them thank me. My wife and I were at dinner a couple months ago, and a player and his wife come walking in, and he saw me and came over and uh, met my wife and And we visited for a few minutes and we said to him, would you like to join us? And he said, sure. The entire conversation had nothing to do with football. We never even discussed football, never even came up. Well, that's not true. Because when he left, I said, see you in Costa Mesa. But nothing football, nothing. And you can do your job and be critical. It's like parents who don't have the ability to be critical and disciplinary of their children without making it personal. I'll never forget one time when my first child was born, I said, my daughter Sandra, my princess, I said to my father, I said, Dad, you were so good at it. And he goes, you didn't come with an owner's manual, but he said, I'm going to give you one piece of advice. You probably don't ever remember everything I ever corrected you, but I bet you remember how I talked to you. I said, I do. And he said, I always was very loving, even when I was angry. When you made mistakes, I told you why they were mistakes. And he goes, I disciplined you and I prayed with you. And he said, because son, you were going to forget if you got grounded for doing something, but you're never going to forget how I made you feel. And I wanted you to know my dad, even when he disciplined me, loved me. Now, I'm not these people's dad, but when you're writing about a player, I get a lot of criticism, and it's okay because I really don't care. I'm not changing. I get a lot of criticism from people who say, I wish you'd quit saying how much you like this guy or how much you like that guy. No, I'm not changing that. If I don't like somebody, I'll just not say anything. But if you notice, I usually say that when I'm being critical because most people do not have the aforementioned mental acuity to take always being critical and then put that and delineate it to mean, oh, he dislikes that guy. We live in a society now that if I disagree with you, I hate you. That is the stupidest thing in the entire world. There are things I've done I disagree with. I don't hate me. There are things that my precious wife has done I disagree with. I certainly don't hate her. I adore her. My children have done things I don't like. I love them dearly. My point is, we've got to get back to a society where you can be critical of people and not make it personal, where you don't have to use expletives to not want somebody. I'll give you an example. Okay. This is a good example. Sam Webb, wonderful young man. I've been critical of how he played in this camp. I thought he had an opportunity, along with Sincere McCormick, Britton Brown, and others, to make steps. They have not done it. But dear God, I don't want any of you to think that Hondo Carpenter thinks less of them as men because they haven't had their camp, because they're all good kids. Guys, excuse me. They're all good guys. They're good guys. Good people. Good people. I talk about Jack Jones being a great guy, and oh, by the way, he is, because I know he's been through some hard times, and a lot of people in our society, they act like they're perfect and come down hard on people who've made mistakes. Well, I can tell you, people that expect perfection out of others are because they don't want you to see the imperfection in them. And I'll defend Jack Jones to the death. I love that young man. I do. I love a redemption story. I love it when people don't quit. And so, what I would say to you is, um, it's imperative. It's imperative that you treat people the way you want to be treated. When I hear, people in practice would yell my name, I'd always stop and say to them, hey, it's not fair. You know my name. I don't know yours. What's your name? It's not too much to stop and meet somebody. You guys are my bosses. So, anyways, I appreciate the players saying that to you. And, but that's how you do that. Um, This next one's kind of funny. I got a couple of them here. I don't know if we're going to answer them all, but this next one is pretty funny. It says to me, Hondo, you often say that you don't report on answer what other media people are saying. Can you explain why? And it's from Peter. uh, Peter. Okay. It's a Hispanic name. And every time I say a Hispanic name wrong, oh, I get lit up. So I'm just going to say Peter Q. Okay. Peter Q. Um, I don't. First of all, I'm too busy covering the team. Sports Illustrated doesn't hire me to cover the media. Number one. Number two, um, people who are legitimate national media aren't here. I can't tell you how many, I mean, national media will come to an event and ask us local guys, hey, what's going on? I'll tell you a funny story. It has not been this camp, but I remember since I've covered the Raiders, national media guy comes in and asks a couple of us, hey, what's going on with the team? He comes in that morning, watches a little bit of practice, comes out, and he's on national TV that night, telling everybody in the country what's going on with the Raiders. And he essentially got all of his information from those of us in the room. I thought that was kind of funny. I've been in it long enough. I know how it works. And number two, it's not my job. A quick one. I got called by one of my staff members, and um, she said to me, hey, in the comment section, somebody said you're wrong because you said there were 2 interceptions and other people are reporting there's 4. I said, well, I don't care. But if you want to know, and I just told her, I reported on the interceptions by Gardner and uh, Aiden because that's where the battle is. I said there were, but I'm only reporting on those. So, it's irrelevant. I don't care. Other people have other opinions. Um, I I'll give you another one. So I reported that Devonte Adams that there was a great chance he was going to be a Raider 1 year before he came. Okay. There are media who I like and respect, so I'm not naming them, who told everybody not happening. Checked with my sources, not going to happen. Well, we stood right by the story and it happened. And it was funny listening to those same people then tell Raider Nation, nobody saw this coming. Okay. We talked about Josh McDaniels, potentially a candidate. Some of my competition reported, no, he's not. I mentioned him again a day before he was hired. No, he's not coming. And the next day he got hired. And on and on and on. Okay. I told you that I thought the Raiders would sign a veteran and draft a quarterback, but told you they weren't moving up in the first round. I said that for months. Okay. After day one, you can go back and watch a video. I told you at this point, if they pick a quarterback, I think it'll be day 3. And then before day 3, I said, no, don't expect a quarterback. They're going to take a UDFA. All right. But many of my competition reporting that they were hot and heavy into the hunt for a quarterback, which I told you they weren't. Again, not ripping anybody. That's why I'm not naming anybody. My job is to get the best information and pass it on to you, not worried about anybody else. There are a lot of great people that cover this team, and I've got a good relationship with them. So it's not an attack. It's just I need to be accountable for me. I got enough going on in my life. There's an old saying, people that want to talk about what you're doing, it's because they don't want to worry about what they're doing. I'm worried about what I'm doing. As long as I do my job, however anybody else does it, God bless them. That's great. I'm going to do it my way, and that's a philosophy I try to work. The next one, this will be our last one, comes to us from R. Thalen, and R. Thalen wants to know, what are you most happy with camp so far, and most disappointed? That's great. Most happy with the intensity of every side of the ball. Everybody is competing. Everybody is fighting and yet keeping chemistry. That's huge. Most disappointed that we haven't seen a quarterback emerge. Very disappointing. Long way to go. This thing's far from over. And guess what? My podcast tomorrow is going to be a complete recap of the game. Ooh, game day. Aren't you excited? I got to go catch a bird to go to Minnesota. Tomorrow, when we meet, it's going to be after the game. If you've never seen one of my complete recaps after a game, you don't want to miss it. They're epic, tons of notes. I go down. So, what happens is after the game, I go down in the locker room, visit with AP, visit with the quarterbacks, go in the locker room, visit with guys. And then when I come up, I've got their assessment. I've been able to talk to everybody about maybe some things I saw. Did I see this right? If not, what's the context? And then we do a massive recap. We do it every game, including the preseason. You're going to love it. So, from all of us here at Sports Illustrated's Las Vegas Raiders coverage, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you have a great Friday. God bless you, everybody. See you tomorrow.